I still remember the sound my boots made that night, gravel crunching under rubber soles, echoing louder than it should have been under the floodlights. It was just past 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of sticky late August evening you only get down south. The air hung thick and heavy in the lungs, like the whole world had exhaled and forgotten how to breathe again. Back then, I was Officer Kyle Brennan of the Fayette County Sheriff's Department. Been with them a little over 9 years. I was 38, married to a teacher named Emily who could still make me blush when she smiled. And I had one kid, Noah, who had just turned 7. We lived in a 3-bedroom brick house just outside the town of Grafton, Alabama. Small place, quiet people. One of those towns where you still wave to strangers and know the name of your kid's bus driver. For most of my career, it had been routine. Traffic stops, loud neighbors, the occasional meth bust out near the county line. We had our problems like anywhere else, but nothing ever really exploded until the night it did. That Tuesday started like any other. I stopped for gas at Murphy's on Route 19, got my coffee black with too much sugar, and chatted with Mary behind the counter, who always asked about Noah's baseball team. My shift was simple: evening patrol eyes on County Line Road and the stretch of back roads that bordered Walker County. We'd been getting tips about drug traffic coming in that way lately, but nothing concrete. Still, I kept my eyes open. I wasn't supposed to be working that night. Officer Jamie Parkins had called out sick, and I volunteered to cover his shift. He had a newborn at home, and I figured he needed the sleep more than I did. I didn't know that decision would haunt me for the rest of my life. At about 7:45 p.m., I was headed eastbound on County Line Road, cruising about 50, just watching the tree line roll by in the golden light, when dispatch came over the radio unit. 243 possible reckless driver reported near the 1400 block of County Line. Blue Dodge Charger caller says it swerved over the yellow twice. Plate comes back. Registered to a local. Zachary Cross. That name made something flicker in the back of my mind. Cross I'd arrested his older brother Caleb 2 years earlier for meth possession. Same family that owned that rundown trailer park off Briar Patch Road. Trouble seemed to breed there. I radioed back. Copy that. 243 in the area, I'll run it. 2 minutes later, I spotted the Charger turning into the lot of an old gas station called Harper's Stop. Half the lights on the sign were out. The place had a busted soda machine, 2 diesel pumps that barely worked, and a tiny convenience store that smelled like bleach and hot dogs. The Charger didn't pull up to a pump. It parked crooked by the side of the building, right up against the cinder block wall, like someone trying to hide. Something about that bugged me. I turned on my dash cam and pulled up behind the car, angled just enough to give me cover. I radioed in my location, then stepped out, hand resting on my hip. Not on the holster, just near it. As I approached, I saw a kid in the driver's seat. Young, maybe 19 or 20 white kid, buzz-cut sunburned cheeks, twitchy. Even before I got to the window, I could smell it. Ammonia, something acidic and chemical. Not alcohol, not weed. Something sharper. Something wrong. He had both hands on the wheel, gripping it like it might fly away if he let go. "Evening," I said, calm and neutral. "Mind rolling down your window for me?" He obeyed, jerky and slow. His eyes were dilated, huge black saucers reflecting the dying light, and his skin was damp with sweat. "You all right, son?" He nodded too fast, lips trembling. "Yeah, I'm just tired. Heading home." "Where's home?" "Grafton." "You live in Grafton, but your plates are registered to Birch Hollow." He flinched like I'd smacked him. I noted it. "What's your name?" He hesitated, then said, "Zach." "Zach Cross." I asked for his license and registration. His hands shook so badly I was worried he'd drop them. When he finally handed them over, I checked the ID. It matched expired registration, no insurance card. "Zach, I need you to step out of the vehicle so we can talk." "Why? I didn't do nothing." "I didn't say you did, but your behavior's erratic and I need to make sure you're safe to drive. Step out." He hesitated. Then, "You just gonna shoot me like y'all always do?" That sentence hit me sideways. We'd never had that kind of tension in Grafton. Not like in the big cities, but the words felt rehearsed, like someone had fed them to him. "I'm not here to hurt you, Zach. Just talk." I could see his chest rising and falling fast. Too fast. He looked at the center console, then at me, then back again. That's when I saw it, just a glint. Chrome, peeking out from under a crumpled Taco Bell bag. "Zach, don't move," I said slowly, backing up a half step. "Keep your hands on the wheel." He didn't. His hand darted down fast, too fast. I drew. "Hands up, now!" His door flung open so violently it bounced. He stumbled out, knocking into the frame, still holding something wrapped in a rag. I don't remember making the decision. My body moved before my brain did. "Put it down!" I shouted. He didn't. That's when Deputy Alan Rivera pulled up. He saw what I saw. Zach stepping toward me, hands clenched around metal. Rivera took position across from me, angled for crossfire. "Drop it!" he bellowed. Zach screamed something I couldn't understand. Maybe nonsense, maybe a prayer. And then he raised the weapon. I fired, then Rivera did. The sound of gunfire is never clean. It tears, it rips, it echoes off walls and drills through your ears until all you hear is ringing. Zach went down hard, crumpling like a puppet with its strings cut. The object skittered across the pavement. A silver revolver. We moved in, clearing the scene, weapon still drawn. Rivera kept his eyes on the kid while I kicked the revolver away and checked his pulse. Still there, faint, rapid. Blood pooled under him, thick and dark and spreading fast. I radioed for EMS. The whole thing had lasted maybe 30 seconds. The investigation was immediate. The revolver, loaded, filed off serial number. The backseat of the Charger held a duffel bag with glass tubes, acetone, cold pills, everything you'd need for a small meth lab. His toxicology later showed meth, amphetamines, and fentanyl. Zach survived, barely. Took 2 surgeries to get him stable, lost mobility in his left leg. His mother came to see me at the station 2 weeks later, screamed in my face, told me I shot her baby for no reason. The media found the story within days. Small town cop shoots young man during routine stop. The narrative formed fast. A scared kid, high but unarmed, gunned down by trigger-happy officers. The fact that he'd pulled a gun barely made it to the 5th paragraph in most stories. Protests began the next weekend. Not huge at first, just signs outside City Hall. Then the activists came in from Birmingham, then from Atlanta. It didn't matter that my dash cam showed him raising the weapon. Didn't matter that Rivera's body cam confirmed it. What people saw or felt was different. Zach's mother posted a picture of him from high school. Clean cut, football jersey, smile like a movie star. The kind of photo that burns itself into your mind. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. Noah kept asking why people were on TV holding signs with my name. Emily tried to keep the world from reaching our front door, but how do you do that in the age of the internet? Our address was leaked. I found bullet holes in our mailbox, a brick through the back windshield of my cruiser. The department put me on leave during the investigation. Standard protocol, but it felt like exile. Zach was charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, intent to distribute, and attempted assault. He pleaded not guilty, claimed he was confused, claimed we didn't identify ourselves properly, claimed he never raised the weapon. It didn't matter what was on the footage. What mattered was perception. I testified at the trial 6 months later, told the story again, and again, and again. Cross-examined until I couldn't remember which version of the truth I was supposed to be telling. Zach was convicted. 10 years, parole eligible in 5. His mother cried. So did mine. After the verdict, the protests died down. Mostly, but the town didn't forget. People crossed the street to avoid me in the grocery store. Others shook my hand and whispered thanks like we were in a war zone. I went back to work after 8 weeks. It was different. Everything was. Every traffic stop made my chest tight. Every movement from a driver's hand felt like it could be the last thing I ever saw. I started dreaming of that gas station. Sometimes it was Zach behind the wheel. Sometimes it was Noah. 3 months ago, Harper's stop was torn down. The county put up a public park in its place. There's a walking trail now where Zach Cross almost died. I take Noah there sometimes. We walk in silence, past the spot where it happened. He doesn't ask about it anymore, and I don't offer. Some wounds heal, some just learn how to scar. Story 2. I was 6 months into my transfer to Waverly, Ohio, when the call came in. Small town, nothing fancy, Population just under 12,000, nestled between cornfields and the sleepy waters of the East Fork River. I'd spent 12 years in Cleveland PD before my wife insisted we move somewhere quieter. After what happened to our son, I couldn't argue. It was a Tuesday in early November, around 3:40 p.m. I was parked just off Route 32 in my cruiser, sipping cold gas station coffee and finishing a report on a minor fender bender when dispatch came through. Unit 6, possible welfare check at 312 Alder Bend. Caller reports concern for a neighbor, elderly male, hasn't been seen in a few weeks. No known family. Mail piling up. Porch light on during the day. Code 10 to 20, over. I acknowledged and hit the lights, though I didn't use the siren. Alder Bend was only about 7 minutes out. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. Welfare checks were part of the rhythm here. Widows forgetting doctor's appointments, dementia patients accidentally unplugging their phones. Most days I'd find them napping in front of a rerun with the TV on full blast. I remember thinking it'd be quick, just in and out. Maybe even be home in time to pick up groceries for Lauren. God, how wrong I was. Waverly's an old town, not creepy old, but solid. Bricks and wood that had survived generations. Alder Bend was one of those curved little streets just past the Methodist church, where American flags waved in front yards and kids still rode bikes in the fall leaves. House 312 looked like any other. Two-story craftsman with peeling blue paint and a little white fence. The kind of place you wouldn't look at twice. But something felt off even before I stepped out of the cruiser. The mailbox was overflowing. Flyers, circulars, even one of those pre-winter roofing coupons wedged halfway out. The grass had browned, leaves lay thick and soggy along the walkway. A ceramic gnome near the porch steps had been knocked over, shattered into jagged pieces. I radioed in my arrival and walked up. The front door was closed, but as I got closer, I noticed it wasn't fully latched, just slightly ajar. That's when my gut twisted. "Waverly PD," I called out. "Anyone home?" No answer. I knocked, louder this time, then pushed the door open with one hand resting on my sidearm. The hinges creaked like a horror movie cue. Inside, it was still. Not just quiet, dead still. The air had that closed-up smell, like old carpet and stale food. I stepped inside, boots sinking slightly into the thick brown shag rug. There was a coat hanging neatly on the rack, a cane resting against the wall. Signs of life, but no sign of the person who lived here. "Sir, this is Officer Tom Grayson with Waverly Police. I'm here to check on you." Still nothing. I stepped further in, scanning the space. Everything looked frozen in time. The living room TV was off. A mug sat on the coffee table, rim stained with what looked like old tea. I touched it, cold. The kitchen was tidy but dusty, dishes clean and stacked. A calendar on the fridge still showed October. 2 weeks behind. That's when I saw the basement door. It was shut. Not locked, just shut. A long wooden door with an old iron handle, the kind you'd see in a 1940s home. I crossed the kitchen and reached for it, and immediately noticed the deadbolt. On the outside, I froze. Nobody bolts a basement door from the outside unless they don't want something coming up. I keyed my radio. Unit 6 requesting backup at 312 Alder Bend. Welfare check may involve possible confinement. Stand by. 10-4, Unit 6. Nearest unit is Carter. ETA 5 minutes. I drew my weapon and tapped on the door. "Sir, if you're in there, I'm opening this door." No reply. I turned the bolt, my hands suddenly clammy, and pulled the door open slowly. A faint odor rose up like a wave. Rot, urine, mildew. I hit my flashlight and descended slowly. The steps creaked under my weight. The walls were unfinished concrete. Halfway down, I paused, ears straining. Was that breathing? Low, raspy, coming from below and to the left. I reached the bottom and swung my light across the room. At first, it looked empty, just boxes, dust, and storage bins. But then in the far corner, I saw him. A man, maybe in his 60s, hunched in a folding chair. Shirtless. His arms were tied behind him with rope. His mouth duct-taped. His eyes wide and glassy. I moved fast, calling it in. Confirmed hostage. Male. Restrained. Alive. Request EMS and code 3 backup. I rushed to him and knelt, keeping one eye on the shadows. He flinched as I reached for the tape. It's okay. You're safe now, I said. He shook his head frantically. Then he whispered one word when I peeled back the tape. Run. A noise behind me. Fast footsteps on the stairs. I spun around. Too late. The impact hit me in the side, sending me sprawling into the concrete. My flashlight rolled, spinning shadows across the walls. A figure stood at the base of the stairs. A woman. Late 40s, wild blonde hair, eyes red-rimmed with rage. She held something long, a fire poker maybe, and she screamed as she raised it. I barely rolled away in time. The poker slammed the floor where my head had been. She screamed again, incoherent, feral. I scrambled for my flashlight, then my gun, but she kicked it away. Another swing. Pain burst across my ribs. The man in the chair was yelling now, frantic. I lashed out with my boot and caught her shin. She stumbled. I lunged, tackled her into the crates behind us. She bit me, actually bit my shoulder. I wrestled her off, finally managing to draw my weapon. I pointed it straight at her chest. Waverly, PD stop. Moving, now. She froze, the look on her face. It wasn't shock. It was hate, pure and simple. Then the backup arrived. Carter came down with his weapon drawn, eyes wide. He cuffed her while I freed the man, who collapsed into me sobbing. His name was Michael Baird. He'd been missing for 3 weeks, and he wasn't the only one. Over the next few days, we uncovered the truth. The woman, Lisa Magruder, was the daughter of the real homeowner, Charles Magruder. Charles had died 2 years earlier, but no one knew. Lisa had kept it quiet, collected his pension, and stayed in the house alone. Only she wasn't alone. Michael was the third man she'd taken. She'd lured them off the road, men with no local ties, no one to ask questions. A stranded motorist here, a desperate renter there. Her method was strange. She'd offer a place to stay, play the role of kind caretaker, then drug them, bind them, and keep them. Why? She never said. Psych evaluation later called it extreme delusional fixation with control disorders. She called it saving them from the world. In the basement, we found a second room with blood-stained sheets, old restraints, and names carved into the wall. 4 of them. Only one matched a known missing persons report. We never found remains, just signs of people, hair, clothes, blood. It haunted me. It's been 11 months since that day. Lisa Magruder is in a psychiatric facility, awaiting trial. Michael Baird is back in Dayton with his family. I still talk to him sometimes. He sends updates, says he started painting again. Me, I'm still patrolling Waverly. I drive past Alderbend every couple weeks. The house is boarded up now. No one wants it. It sits there like a wound, slowly rotting from the inside. And sometimes I think about that door. The basement door with the deadbolt on the outside. That was all it took. One strange detail, one locked door. I used to think monsters wore ski masks and carried guns. Now I know better. Sometimes they wear bathrobes. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they bake cookies for church bake sales. But they're out there, and they know how to hide. Story 3. I was 38 when I learned that wearing a badge didn't mean you were safe. For almost 15 years, I worked narcotics for the Black Ridge Police Department, a mid-sized city in northern Nevada that most people only knew because it sat between Vegas and Reno. Nothing flashy, just another sun-baked town with its share of poverty, addiction, and corruption. But it was home. My wife Lena and I bought a modest place in the southwest side, and when our daughter Ellie was born, we thought maybe, just maybe, this life could be enough. Black Ridge had changed a lot since I first joined the force. Fentanyl had replaced heroin, and with it came a whole new kind of violence. Quieter, deadlier, and better funded. People stopped dying in alleys with needles in their arms. They died in their bedrooms, teenagers, teachers, a pastor's wife, and every time it happened, we buried another piece of our town. That's why, when I got the assignment in the summer of 2017, I didn't hesitate. We were going after a front operation, South Point Auto Detailing, just off Highway 86. Slick on the outside, full wash and wax, espresso machine in the lobby, but the real product moved in the back. Intelligence said the place was a distribution point for the Torres family, a cartel-backed operation moving more fentanyl through Nevada than anyone else. It wasn't just another case. This was the kind of operation that could change things, clean up a city, save lives. They needed someone inside, someone who could play dirty and hold their nerve. That someone was me. I spent 3 months becoming someone else. Matt Delgado, ex-mechanic from Yuma, Arizona, busted for bookmaking and DUI, now out on probation, needing cash fast and willing to keep his mouth shut. I dropped 20 pounds, stopped shaving, started showing up at low-stakes poker games at dive bars. Built a record that would hold up to scrutiny. When I walked into South Point Auto on July 3, 2017, I wasn't Officer Travis Kane anymore. The owner, a man everyone just called Tavo, looked like someone you'd trust to fix your brakes. Gray button-down, spotless boots, quiet eyes. He hired me after 2 days of hanging around the garage, started me on oil changes and tire rotations. But that was just surface level. Within 3 weeks, I was washing out trunks that smelled like old latex and ammonia. A week later, I was sliding small brick packages into spare tire wells and battery compartments. Tavo didn't say much, but he was always watching. My handler, Lieutenant Avery, told me we were making progress. We had photos, partial license plates, street-level confirmation of known distributors stopping in. Another 2 weeks, she said, and we'd have enough to move. That was August 18th. That morning, I got to the shop at 6 a.m., sharp. Blackridge summer heat hits early, makes the pavement shimmer before the sun's even up. The kind of dry heat that makes your sweat evaporate before it can drip. I was under a Honda Accord checking for a loose mount when my burner buzzed in the toolbox. I wasn't supposed to keep my real phone on me, but Lena was 6.5 months pregnant with our second, and I didn't care about protocol. I kept it under the rags in the bottom drawer. The text was short. There's a black SUV parked across the street. It followed me from the Safeway. Engine still running. I stood up too fast and banged my head on the lift. Lena wasn't the anxious type. All through my years undercover, she'd been rock solid. Never called, never panicked. The fact that she texted meant it was serious. I wiped the grease off my hands and told Tavo I needed a cigarette. He barely nodded. I walked around to the alley and hit call. "Hey," she answered, her voice tight. "It's still there. Just idling." "You're sure it followed you?" "I made 4 extra turns. They stayed behind me the whole way." I clenched the phone tighter. "Call the cops." "I can't. What if they're yours? What if it's someone who knows?" The air felt like it thickened around me. "You stay inside. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me. I'll be home in 20. I hung up, heart pounding, and walked back into the shop with a face I'd worn 100 times. Calm, bored, invisible. I left at 11:30 a.m., claiming food poisoning. Nobody argued. Tavo didn't even look up from his clipboard. By the time I hit our street, the SUV was gone, but Lena hadn't dared go outside. She pointed from the window to the front yard. A white envelope, held down by a rock, sat at the edge of the lawn. I got out, scanned the street, picked it up without gloves, because I didn't have time to think like a cop. I just needed to know. Inside was a single sheet of printer paper. Ellie Kane, Jackson Elementary, Ms. Trenton's class. Pink water bottle, Spider-Man lunchbox, walks home with Harper Rowley, usually stops to pick clover behind the playground. The last line punched me in the stomach. "You have a family, maybe pick safer work." I stood there for a second, breath gone, then went inside and locked every door. We met Avery in the secured underground lot behind Blackridge PD headquarters. She looked exhausted, jaw tight like she hadn't slept. In the back seat, Ellie held Lena's hand, asking why we had to leave before lunch. The rest happened fast. 2 plainclothes from internal affairs were already in the building. A secure room, a stack of files, rapid-fire questions. Someone had compromised not just my operation, but 2 others. 3 deep cover officers, all exposed in the last month. One had already been pulled. One was in the wind. I was the third. They traced the leak to calls made from our supposedly secure ops line to a burner phone linked to a known associate of the Torres family. They didn't tell me who they suspected, but Avery's refusal to meet my eye told me she had a good guess. They pulled me off the case that afternoon, told me everything I'd risked was now inadmissible. The operation was blown. Tavo had gone underground. South Point was already being cleared out by the time we got the warrant. All of it wasted. And now, because someone with a badge had talked, my family was a target. We spent the next 6 months living under aliases in a government safe house. Not some high-tech bunker, just a bland duplex in the west end of Carson City. Beige carpet, sagging couch, deadbolt locks. I got reassigned to property crimes in Reno under a different name. Lena homeschooled Ellie. We used burner phones, changed our shopping routines, slept in shifts, lived like ghosts. I didn't care about the job anymore. I just wanted to know who had sold us out. I started asking quiet questions, back-channel inquiries, swapping favors with old contacts. The name that kept popping up shocked me. Lieutenant Avery, the one person I thought had my back. It was almost 2 years before I saw her again. Not in a hearing, not in a debriefing, at a grocery store in Sparks. She was by herself, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, head down in the produce aisle. I spotted her before she saw me, and maybe I should have walked away, but I didn't. I caught her between the apples and oranges. She froze when she looked up. "You knew," I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked smaller. Not like a cop, like a woman hiding from her own shadow. "It wasn't for money," she whispered. "What then?" "They had my son." The words hit me like a hammer. She told me about how he'd gotten mixed up with pills in college. Debts. A group connected to the Torres network had found him. They threatened to kill him if she didn't cooperate. She gave them info. At first, just shipment logs, then names, then addresses. She swore she never meant to expose families, but she had. She'd given them my name, my daughter's routine, everything. I didn't hit her. I didn't yell. I didn't have to. She cried anyway. I filed a full report the next day. Avery was already gone, resigned for personal reasons, pension intact. Her son in rehab in Denver, supposedly safe. Internal Affairs took my statement and thanked me. Promised to investigate, but nothing happened. No charges, no press release, no justice, just silence. We live in Summerlin now. Different name, different job. Ellie's in 7th grade. Our youngest Max just started preschool. Lena still watches the streetlights at night. I still check under the car before I start it. They gave me a commendation, a nice plaque, a retirement packet I'll never touch. But the truth is, the day I walked out of South Point Auto was the day the badge stopped meaning anything. Because in this line of work, it's not the bullets or the dealers that get you. It's the people who sit across the table and smile while holding a knife behind their back. The ones who wear the same badge as you. And once you've seen that, once you've felt the weight of betrayal, you never sleep the same again. Story 4. I didn't grow up wanting to be a 911 dispatcher. It wasn't something I dreamed about in high school or even considered when I enrolled in community college. But life doesn't always hand you dreams. Sometimes it hands you something that pays the bills. Something that lets you stay close to your aging father, pay off your student loans, and chip away at your criminal justice degree one night class at a time. At 23, I was working dispatch for the Carson County Sheriff's Department in northern Minnesota. The department was small, tiny, really. Sheriff Walt Drummond, 3 full-time deputies, and me, the voice behind the radio on the overnight shift. That was our crew for covering over 300 square miles of farmland, pine woods, and pothole-laced highways. Most nights were quiet. You'd get the occasional call about a moose wandering onto Route 86, or a drunk guy throwing frozen pizzas at the gas station clerk because he thought she was a witch. You learned not to get rattled. You learned that even when the radio cracked with chaos, you stayed calm, because your voice was the only one they heard. And if you lost it, they would too. October 13th, 2021, Friday night. The night started like most. Boring. Boring's good in this job. Boring means nobody's bleeding. Boring means you get to watch the clock tick down while sipping instant coffee that tastes like drywall and scrolling old Facebook posts from high school friends who married too young. Deputy Isaac Romero had the overnight shift. He was the kind of guy everyone liked. Quiet, dependable, ex-Navy, The kind of man who always made you feel like things were under control, even when they weren't. I liked working nights when it was him on patrol. He had a way of keeping things grounded. Even his voice over the radio was steady, like an anchor. That night around 11:06 p.m., he radioed in to say he was heading out to check a call on Larkspur Road. A local farmer, Marvin Kelly, had phoned in saying he'd seen lights flickering in the windows of the old Johansson property, the one that had been empty since the early 90s. Said it looked like someone was moving around with flashlights inside the barn. I remember the feeling that crept up the back of my neck when he mentioned that place. Larkspur Farm. Everybody in Carson County knew about it, even if they didn't talk about it much. The Johansson family had lived there for decades. Beautiful property, rolling fields, a red barn that looked like it belonged on a puzzle box. Then one winter night in 1993, the whole family, Leon, Marie, and their two teenage daughters, just vanished. No forced entry, no blood, no ransom notes. Plates still sitting on the dinner table. Front door locked from the inside. And the barn doors wide open. They were never found. Not a trace. And for years, people talked about it like it was some kind of myth, a rural legend. But the deputies who were around back then, Sheriff Drummond included, they didn't joke. They avoided that place. Even during training, we were told never to step inside that barn unless it was absolutely necessary. So when Isaac radioed in that he was heading there alone, I hesitated. "You want me to call Walt? Get someone to back you up?" I asked. His response was casual, confident. "Nah, probably just teenagers or squatters. I'll be in and out." He checked in again at 11:27 p.m. "Dispatch, this is Unit 3. Just pulled up to the Johansson property. The front gate's open, no sign of forced entry. I see movement in the barn. Gonna approach on foot." I didn't like how quiet he sounded. "Copy that. You sure you don't want backup?" There was a pause before he answered, just long enough to make my skin prickle. "It's nothing. Just kids." His voice had dipped, like he wasn't convinced of it himself. 11:43 p.m. The radio crackled again. Not Isaac's voice this time. Just static. But not the usual kind. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic, pulsing, like breathing. Long, slow inhales, followed by short, sharp exhales. And behind it, something fainter, whispering, like multiple voices trying to talk over each other. None of it clear. I grabbed the mic. "Unit 3, do you copy?" "Isaac, respond." No answer. Then at 11:47, his voice came through, whispered, shaky. "Dispatch. I'm in the barn. There's someone here." I froze. "Who?" "Describe them." "He's standing in the back corner, not moving, wearing overalls, like old-fashioned ones. His face—" The radio cut again. Silence. I called for him repeatedly. Nothing. At 11:52, he spoke again. He turned around. Jesus, one of his eyes is gone. There's just a hole, and he's smiling. Not normal smiling. It's like he wants me to come closer. I felt cold all over. The dispatch room was silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights above me and the soft tap of my fingers trembling against the keyboard. "Isaac, back out. Leave the barn now. Do you copy?" He didn't answer that. Instead, his next words came through slow, confused. "He's not alone. There are more. Crawling out from the hayloft, from the shadows. They're all wearing old clothes, like from the 40s or earlier, and they're smiling the same way." I called Sheriff Drummond. He was already pulling on boots before I finished the sentence. He got Deputy Haley and Deputy Burns, and they were en route within 5 minutes. I stayed on the radio, calling, begging Isaac to respond. 12:04 a.m. More whispers came through. No words, just soft, disjointed breathing and static. 12:07 a.m. The mic popped once, then silence. 12:12 a.m. His voice returned one last time, hollow, like it was echoing down a tunnel. "He's showing me something. Says it's time to see. They all want me to see." Then very faintly, as if from far away, "I can't stop walking toward them." The team arrived at 12:22 a.m. Isaac's patrol car was still running, driver's door open, His flashlight was in the dirt next to a set of fresh footprints leading into the barn. The camera on his uniform had been manually switched off at 12:23 a.m. They searched the barn for hours, dogs, drones, infrared. They found no body, but they found his gun, placed neatly on a hay bale, his badge and radio next to it, and in the center of the barn, carved deep into the wooden floor, was a spiral, old, faded, with symbols around it that no one could identify. Forensics came in, the state got involved, paranormal investigators tried to get access. The case never officially closed, but it never moved forward either. And the oddest part, in the dust and dirt where Isaac's footprints ended, were dozens more, going in different directions, some small, some large, some barefoot, many partially rotted into the wood as if they'd been made decades ago. And all of them were heading toward the spiral. I quit 2 weeks later. I finished my degree online and moved to a suburb near Minneapolis. I tell people I used to work dispatch, but I don't tell them what I heard. Not all of it. Because sometimes, late at night, I still hear the radio, even though I don't have one. Just last month, I woke up to the sound of Isaac's voice in my apartment, clear as anything. "You need to see it. We all do. We all saw it now." I turned on every light in the place, checked the front door, sat in the hallway until sunrise. They bulldozed Larkspur Farm in 2023. Said it was for safety reasons, structural decay, that kind of thing. But the rumors haven't stopped. Lights still appear where the barn once stood. Locals say they hear voices from the field. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone will swear they saw a patrol car parked off the side of the road. Engine idling, driver's door hanging open, and if you listen real close, you'll hear the radio, still crackling, still whispering, still waiting for someone to answer. Story 5, I've worked the night shift at the Maple Glen Police Department in Northern Illinois for over a decade now. It's not the kind of town where you expect much to happen. We've got a population just under 9,000, 3 schools, 1 gas station that stays open past midnight, and a diner that serves the strongest coffee this side of the Mississippi. Most nights are a loop. Fill out reports, sip lukewarm coffee, chase off the occasional teenager loitering outside the movie rental kiosk. You stop looking at the clock after a while because time doesn't move normal on graveyard shifts. It stretches. My name is Officer Dana Caldwell. I joined the department when I was 24, fresh out of the academy and still wide-eyed. Now I'm 37, divorced, and live in a small house on East Linwood with a pit bull named Remy, who waits up for me every morning like he knows I've seen things I won't talk about. It was May 11th, 2022, a Wednesday. I remember that because the day before, I'd attended my ex-husband's wedding. We were on decent terms, no kids to complicate things, and the split was mostly mutual. But sitting there in a borrowed dress while he danced with someone 10 years younger than me messed with my head more than I'd expected. So when I clocked in that night, I wasn't in the mood for anything out of the ordinary. Around 2:15 a.m., I was at the station typing up a traffic citation when dispatch rang through the internal line. It was Officer Kellerman from County Patrol. "Got a situation," he said, his voice scratchy like he hadn't slept in days. "Picked up a woman walking barefoot along County Road 18 near the old grain silos. She's coherent, but off. Keeps asking for a female officer." "Drunk?" I asked, grabbing a pen. "That's the thing. Doesn't smell like alcohol. Not slurring either. But she's talking in riddles. Said she had to find someone who would listen. She wouldn't get in the car until I said you'd be at the station." Kellerman wasn't the type to rattle easy. That made me pause. "Bring her in. I'll handle the intake." I went through the motions, cleaned up the interview room, turned off the station radio so we'd have silence, made sure there was water on the table. When Kellerman arrived, he walked her in slowly like she was made of glass. She looked about 45. Auburn hair pulled into a loose braid that had mostly come undone. Her face was smudged with dirt, makeup streaked from tears. She wore a linen summer dress, white with blue flowers, but it was stained and torn along the hem. No shoes. Her knees were scraped like she'd fallen somewhere. "This is Claire," Kellerman said quietly, handing me a purse. "That's the only name she's given." Inside the purse was a phone with no battery, a few crumpled 20s, and a receipt from a roadside diner in Missouri, dated 4 days earlier. No ID. Claire wouldn't meet my eyes. She clutched her elbows tightly, rocking ever so slightly as she stood. "Hi, Claire," I said gently. "I'm Officer Caldwell. Why don't we sit and talk?" She nodded slowly and followed me into the interview room. For the first 10 minutes, I tried the usual, ask where she came from, who I could call for her. But she only stared at the water bottle on the table, her lips moving slightly like she was reciting something to herself. Then she said, clear as glass, "There's a man buried under a green circle. I can tell you how to find him." I froze, not because of what she said, but how she said it. Calm, focused, like she'd rehearsed the sentence 1,000 times. "What man?" I asked. She looked up then, and for the first time I saw her eyes. Icy green, almost translucent under the fluorescence. "I don't know his name, but I've seen him. I've felt what he felt." "Claire, are you saying you witnessed a crime?" "No," she whispered. "I'm saying it lives in me." She closed her eyes and spoke again, this time in a monotone, as if she were reading a GPS. "Drive County Road 18 northbound for exactly 10.2 miles. You'll see a rusted mailbox on the left, no house nearby, just the box. Turn onto the gravel path opposite that mailbox. Go 700 feet. You'll see an old maple tree with one arm reaching sideways like it's pointing. Walk 39 steps northeast from that tree. You'll find a patch of grass shaped like a circle. It's greener than anything around it. Underneath, he's there." I wrote it all down. I didn't even think, just wrote. She kept going. "He's wearing a gray hoodie with a red drawstring. His left boot is untied. There's a chipped molar in the back of his mouth. His pinky finger is broken and healed wrong. There's duct tape residue on his wrist." She opened her eyes. "That's where he is." The words struck me like a cold wind. I'd had confessions before. Hell, I'd interviewed violent men who smiled through their crimes. But this was different. Claire blinked hard like she was waking from a dream. Her breathing changed. She looked around the room like she didn't recognize it. "What? Where am I?" "You told me about a man," I said. "A buried body." "No," she whispered. "No, I didn't." I read back her words. Claire covered her ears and started to cry. "They come into me," she said. "Memories, but they're not mine. Sometimes I smell the dirt. Sometimes I feel the weight of it on my chest. I can't stop it. Please, I just want to go home." She didn't say another word after that. We had her booked for protective custody due to psychological distress. The station therapist, Dr. Levin, cleared her for release the next day after a brief evaluation. Her cousin from St. Louis came to pick her up, said Claire had suffered from episodes since a car accident 6 years ago. She'd had no history of violence, no record, nothing. But I couldn't stop thinking about the green circle. The next afternoon, I brought it up to Lieutenant Monroe, told him the whole story. At first, he looked at me like I'd lost it, but then he shrugged. "You know what? Take Barnes and check it out. It's probably nothing, but better to cover ourselves." Officer Michael Barnes had 10 years on me and a photographic memory. We headed out the next morning. County Road 18 ran long and straight through fields of soybean and corn. At exactly 10.2 miles, we saw the rusted mailbox, just like Claire said. No house, no name. Across from it, a barely visible gravel path. We drove 700 feet and came to a stop by a gnarled maple tree with one large branch stretched sideways, like it was gesturing toward the woods. We got out. Barnes started walking, counting softly under his breath. 38, 39. And there it was, a circle. The grass was thick, green, vibrant. It stood out starkly against the rest of the landscape. Barnes knelt, ran his fingers through it, then looked up at me. "Smells like something under here, rot." We called it in. Over the next 6 hours, cadaver dogs were brought in. The sheriff's office arrived. A forensics team set up a perimeter. And just before sundown, they dug. 4 feet down, they found a body, wrapped in plastic sheeting, gray hoodie, red drawstring, untied boot, a broken pinky finger. The man was later identified as Elijah Marsh, age 28. Reported missing from Peoria 8 months earlier. Former addict trying to stay clean. Had worked odd jobs. His mother had filed a missing person report after he missed Thanksgiving. They'd found nothing. Until now. There was no obvious cause of death. Forensics suggested asphyxiation, possibly a bag or chemical, but there wasn't enough left to confirm. The plastic had preserved parts of him, but not everything. No fingerprints on the plastic, no suspects, no vehicle traces, and no connection to Claire. None. She'd never met Elijah, never lived in Illinois. She'd been in another state entirely when he went missing. I called her once, about a week after the discovery, just to hear her voice, to hear if she remembered anything more. She answered, recognized my name. I can't talk about him, she said quietly. I still dream about the circle, but it's not him anymore. It's someone else now. That chilled me more than the body ever did. We never closed the case. Marcia's mother held a small funeral in Peoria. She thanked me through tears for finding her son. But I didn't find him. Claire did. Or something inside her did. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder how many other places are like that. Green circles of untouched earth. Graves waiting to be spoken into existence. I still work nights. Still drink that god-awful coffee. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I see Claire's pale face lit by that buzzing light. I hear her voice. There's a man buried under a green circle. And I wonder who's next. Story 6. I joined the Durham Ridge Police Department when I was 26. Full of caffeine and ambition, thinking I'd be kicking down doors, solving murders, and changing lives. That was 3 years ago. Now I'm 29, assigned to property and evidence, and most of my time is spent logging dusty electronics, logging meth-stained backpacks, and wondering where the hell all my adrenaline went. Most people don't understand what happens to the physical remnants of crime. Jewelry, knives, phones with cracked screens, and half-charged batteries still full of secrets. We catalog it, store it, let it rot in legal limbo until the courts say we can toss it. I'm Officer Lisa Ramirez, born and raised in Spokane, moved to Oregon when I got into the academy. My dad was a contractor. My mom, well, she was the one who pushed me toward law enforcement. Said I always asked too many questions not to make a career out of it. She died 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and mean. I never got to tell her how hard the job really is when no one's bleeding or screaming. Just vanishing. Thursday, September 18th, 4:12 p.m. I was buried in the evidence basement, solo shift again because my partner Rob had taken sick leave. I didn't mind the quiet. I actually liked being around all that forgotten stuff. The hum of the old HVAC system and the low fluorescent buzz overhead felt like white noise to me. I was halfway through cataloging the fallout from a pawn shop raid that happened the night before. Standard fence operation. We'd been tracking it for months. 3 large duffel bags of items. Jewelry mostly, nothing fancy. Most of it was probably stolen from glove boxes or broken into apartments. I picked up a thin silver necklace, barely noticeable in the mess. Delicate chain, small oval pendant. The back of it had a dent like it had been dropped on concrete. The front had 3 initials engraved in soft cursive, ALB, surrounded by a cluster of etched lilacs. That detail stopped me cold. ALB, I'd seen those initials before. I stepped away from the table, pulled my laptop toward me, and logged into our internal case system. I had to dig deep into the suspended case files, but I found it. Amanda Lee Branson disappeared last October on her walk home from the downtown library. No known enemies, no body, just a missing persons poster that sat ignored on the break room bulletin board for 10 months. Amanda had been 27, taught piano out of her apartment, loved plants and 70s folk records, according to her sister's report. The detail that hit me in the stomach. She was last seen wearing a silver necklace with lilacs engraved around her initials. Same initials, same flowers, same week she disappeared. I brought the necklace upstairs to Sergeant Heller, who was neck deep in disciplinary write-ups, and I swear to God he didn't even look up when I explained the match. Lots of people got the same initials, Ramirez, and lilacs aren't exactly rare. You know how many ALBs probably live in this town? I get that, but this necklace, it's unique. It matches everything from Amanda's case file. We raided that pawn shop last night. That puts the necklace in circulation after her disappearance. He sighed like I'd asked him to babysit a meth head's cat. That case was dead before winter hit. Branson vanished. No witnesses, no leads. It was combed over by Whitaker himself. Whitaker was our lead detective back then. Solid guy, sharp instincts, but overworked. I'm just saying, I pressed, this could be something. Log it, tag it, move on. So I didn't log it. Instead, I printed Amanda's file and brought it home. I know that's a violation, but look, if I hadn't trusted my gut, Amanda would still be a face on a corkboard. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, under the same dusty pendant light I hadn't changed since moving in. My dog Charlie lay curled at my feet. I spread the reports across the table like a puzzle. Statements, timelines, phone records. Amanda had walked from the downtown library on a Tuesday evening around 7 o'clock. She lived just 6 blocks away. Never made it. The only witness? A 911 call made by a local parking enforcement officer who claimed to have seen a young woman talking to someone near a rusted-out pickup near the library steps. It was too dark for a clear description, and the security camera from the library was offline that week due to maintenance. The necklace, according to Amanda's sister, was custom-made. Their mom had it done after Amanda beat leukemia at 15. One of a kind. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Something about the case felt wrong. The next morning, I pulled the transaction history from the pawn shop. The necklace had been sold by a man named David Clemens 9 months ago. And that name rang bells. I did a department search. David Clemens had worked in our records division for 16 years, retired 5 months back. Early, cited medical reasons, though HR didn't specify. He had full access to cold case files. He would have had all the information about Amanda's case, her route, the items she had on her photo. I pulled his personnel file. Clemens had no spouse, no kids, lived in a 1-story brick home in the northern end of Durham Ridge. I checked his home's location, just 3 blocks from where Amanda vanished. I requested the old library footage one more time, thinking maybe something had been misfiled. It had. A camera facing the west lot captured a time-stamped shot of Clemens's old beige Ford Ranger parked there at 6:58 p.m., the night Amanda disappeared, 2 minutes before she would have walked that path. I printed that too. Then I called him, said I was doing a departmental review of retired personnel who had handled property logging in cold cases. It was thin, but plausible. He agreed to meet. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. The moment I pulled up to his house, my stomach sank. The blinds were drawn, overgrown bushes pressed against the siding. A smell of mildew hung in the air. The house was quiet, still. The kind of still that isn't peace. It's hiding. He opened the door after one knock, thinner than I expected. Pale, but his eyes were quick, scanning me. My badge, the driveway, like he was expecting someone else to show up. "Officer Ramirez?" he asked. I nodded. He let me in. The house was off. Neat, but wrong. Like someone had studied what a normal house should look like and replicated it without really understanding why. There were books that didn't match his age or job, YA novels, old piano sheet music, a potted plant in the window that looked long dead. Then I saw the photo. It was on the mantel, framed, a blurry shot of Amanda Branson from her sister's Facebook profile, the same one we'd used for her missing persons flyer. "I take it you've heard of the Branson case," I said slowly. Clemens stiffened. "Sad case. I read about it. Lots of women go missing in cities like this." He said it like he'd read it off a cue card. My eyes drifted to the coffee table, a ceramic mug with lilacs painted across the side. Amanda's sister mentioned one just like it missing from her apartment. I noticed the wallpaper then, cream and pale lavender, identical to the photo from Amanda's old bedroom. The apartment had been repainted when her lease expired. There was no way for that pattern to exist in this house unless Clemens had taken it. My heart pounded. I stayed calm, asked more questions. Bullshit small talk about old cases and evidence handling. Clemens relaxed over time. He thought he was winning. As I left, I saw one more detail, a charm bracelet sitting in a display box. A small M charm hung from it. Amanda's middle name was Lee, but her sister's was Melissa. This man was keeping trophies. Back at the station, I filed for a search warrant immediately. Showed everything to Whitaker and Heller. At first, Heller looked at me like I was still overreaching, but Whitaker, he saw it too. "This bastard's been right under our noses," he muttered. The search was conducted the next day. They found the wallpaper, the mug, the bracelet, and in the backyard, buried beneath a shallow layer of soil, they found Amanda's remains, wrapped in a tarp, necklace missing. Clemens confessed after 12 hours of questioning. No lawyer, no fight, just tears. Said he'd followed Amanda for months, found her beautiful. Safe, in his words, like someone worth preserving. He had knocked her unconscious and taken her to his home, kept her locked in his basement for 3 days. She tried to escape and hit her head falling down the stairs. He panicked, buried her, then kept her things. Said the necklace was too painful to keep, so he pawned it. The DA pushed for life without parole. He got it. Amanda's sister came to the station a week later, hugged me, said she thought she'd never get answers. I keep the necklace's photo in my desk drawer. Sometimes I look at it and wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been alone that day. If Rob hadn't called in sick. If I'd ignored my gut. I didn't solve that case because I was smarter or braver than anyone else. I solved it because I was bored, underutilized, and obsessed with getting out of property. But now I know the truth. Sometimes the evidence talks. You just have to listen. Story 7. I've learned to trust my gut over the years, 8 years on the job, and if there's one thing that keeps you alive out here, it's that twitch in your stomach when something feels wrong. That gut sense was there before I even put the cruiser in gear that Thursday night, August 14th, 2022. Nothing had happened yet. The sun had barely gone down, but the air felt different, like it was pressing down on everything. Still, heavy, quiet in a way Missouri nights rarely are. I'm Deputy Elijah Moran, Briar Bend County Sheriff's Office. 35, divorced, no kids, not by choice. I live in a converted 2-bedroom above a feed store in Hillmark, population 1,703. Most nights after shift, I nurse a light beer at Keller's Tavern and watch whatever sports rerun is on the muted TV until I can't stand the quiet of my apartment anymore. But that night, I had the closing shift, solo patrol. My partner, Royce, was home with strep. That left me watching the southern half of the county, farmland, logging roads, and a few dying truck stops strung out along Highway 84 like tired teeth. The call came at 11:42 p.m., just as I was finishing a slow roll past the shuttered gas station near Shaw Creek. "Unit 12, dispatch crackled. Debbie, who's worked nights since the 90s, her voice was tight. "Possible 1096 at the old Briar Bend Motel. Caller says there's a woman on site, disoriented. Maybe on something." I grabbed the mic. 10-4, I'm en route. Any further? Caller didn't stay on the line. Said she was barefoot, talking to herself, said something about wires. The Briar Bend Motel hadn't operated in over a decade. It was a rotting 2-story husk off County Road 33, way out past where the road turns to gravel. Locals said it closed after the owner died in his sleep and nobody bothered to clean the place out. The neon sign still stood, just the word "Bend" flickering red when it felt like it. Teens used to party out there until a roof collapsed a few years back. Since then, it's been a shelter for raccoons and broken glass. I clicked on my headlights and turned off the county road. Gravel crunched beneath the cruiser tires. The trees closed in quick out there. Missouri woods thick and old. The moon was high and white, and the mist from Shaw Creek had begun to roll over the roadside like slow smoke. I tightened my grip on the wheel without realizing it. When I pulled into the parking lot, the red letters on the old sign flashed once, like it was greeting me. My lights swept across the lot, scattered beer cans, tall weeds, concrete cracked like old skin. And then I saw her. She was standing in front of the busted ice machine outside the office, barefoot, pale, wearing what looked like a hospital gown, faded blue, torn at one shoulder. Her hair hung wet and matted, like she'd just crawled out of a drainage ditch. She was mumbling to herself, hands twitching as if drawing shapes in the air. I killed the engine and got out slowly, hand resting near my sidearm. "Ma'am," I called gently. "I'm Deputy Moran with the Briar Bend County Sheriff's Office. You okay? I just want to talk." She stopped. Her head snapped toward me so fast it made me take a step back. Her eyes locked on mine from across 30 feet, and I swear I could hear her breathing, ragged and loud like she was right in front of me. She made this sound then, somewhere between a laugh and a scream. It went high, cracked, and then she bolted, not toward the road, but into the shadows behind the main building. I should have waited. I should have called for backup and secured the area. But something about the way she looked, barefoot, hospital gown, clearly unwell, it felt like a medical crisis. I radioed in. "Unit 12 pursuing female subject on foot behind Briar Bend Motel. Approximately age late 20s, hospital attire, appears disoriented. Requesting backup." Debbie's reply came distorted by static. I caught backup en route, but little else. Out here, cell signal dies and radio gets weird. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the direction she'd run. Behind the motel, it was worse. Windows shattered, vines crawling through the boards, pieces of roof hanging like torn paper. The air smelled thick. Rot, mildew, something electric. I moved slow, flashlight sweeping. The beam caught footprints, bare, wet, with dark smudges in the heel. Blood. The trail led past the empty pool, now a gaping concrete scar full of trash and dead leaves. My boots crunched on broken glass and bone-dry needles. The beam swept left, right, nothing. Then I saw the back of the old motel sign. It had fallen halfway off its supports, leaning against the far wall. Electrical cables dangled loose, some coiled unnaturally, as if they'd been pulled out recently. That's where her tracks ended. Something about the scene twisted my gut, like it had been staged. I was backing away to get a better angle when I heard it. Soft scraping above me. Not random building noise. This was deliberate, rhythmic, dragging. I looked up, second floor walkway. Couldn't see much from that angle. I found the stairwell on the far side and climbed slowly. Each step groaned underfoot. The walkway was narrow, lined with plywood-covered doors and graffiti scrawled like angry handwriting. The scraping sound stopped. Then came the whisper. Not from behind me, not ahead, beneath. "Elijah." My blood turned to ice. No one calls me that out here. Everyone says Eli. Only two people use my full name. My mother, who died 3 years ago, and my ex-wife, who hasn't spoken to me in 18 months. I turned, sweeping the light. Nothing. Just shadows, breeze, a gust strong enough to lift dust and make it seem like movement. Then I saw it. Room 208. The door was ajar. The blood trail led directly to it. I announced myself. "Briar Bend County Sheriff's Office. If you're inside, I need you to make yourself visible. I'm here to help." No response. Just that low, wet sound again. Chewing. I pushed the door with my foot. The smell hit first. Copper, rot, and ozone. My light swept across the room. Broken dresser, mold-stained mattress, debris. Then I found her. She was crouched in the far corner. Hospital gown torn. Her arms and ankles wrapped tightly in black electrical cable. Cut sections of the motel's wiring. Her mouth was smeared black. She was chewing the rubber insulation. I swallowed. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Ma'am, I need you to stop and let me help you." She turned toward me, and I saw it. Her eyes, sharp, focused, not lost or dazed. She smiled, teeth rimmed in black rubber. "Deputy Elijah Moran," she said softly, like it was something sacred. "You're just in time." I never gave her my name. My hand was already on my weapon when she surged forward, faster than I thought possible, unraveling wire like a whip. I stepped back just as she slashed it across my face, caught my cheek. Hot blood bloomed instantly. "Get down!" I barked, trying to stay firm, but she didn't even blink. "You don't understand," she said, looping the wire around her arm like it belonged there. "They told me about you. They said you'd come. They said you'd bleed. She lunged again. I got my arm up just in time. Wire caught around my forearm, biting into flesh. She was screaming now, high, broken, like something inside her was tearing in two. I managed to throw her off me, backing into the hallway. She followed. I saw now that the wires trailed behind her, tethered to some jury-rigged nightmare inside the room, coils feeding into a broken fuse box. It wasn't just madness. She was trying to make herself part of the motel. I drew my Glock, voice breaking. Final warning. Drop the wire. On the ground now. She just smiled, teeth flashing in the dark, and ran at me. I fired twice, center mass. She crumpled mid-stride. The wires coiled beside her, twitching once, then still. Silence returned, thick and absolute. My breathing was a roar in my ears. I lowered the weapon and stepped in. She was gone. No pulse. Her eyes were open, still staring at me, still aware. Backup arrived 14 minutes later. I barely remember their voices. Everything sounded underwater. The aftermath unraveled over days. Her name was Anna Grace Hensley, 28. She'd escaped from Pine Hollow State Hospital around 8 p.m. Same gown, same wiring obsession, diagnosed with treatment-resistant schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. But what stood out, what chilled everyone involved, was what they found in her personal journal. She wrote about me, my name, my badge number, the shape of the scar on my wrist from a fishing hook accident at age 9. She'd never met me, never lived in this county. There was no explanation. The department ruled it a tragic case of mental illness and self-harm escalating into assault. Clean shoot, they said. No charges, no disciplinary review. But that doesn't help me sleep at night. Sometimes I wake up to the sound of wires dragging across concrete. I see those black stained teeth, and I hear her voice in the dark, calm and certain. They said you'd come. I don't know who they are, but I know they were right. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, I'll see you again with another horror story. Until then, bye.